Right, exactly, yeah. I don't, yes, 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 but things are. I know. We were the early birds. I know y'all were the early birds. You're always early.
The Board of County Commission, Board of Ed quarterly meeting is now in session. I want to extend a warm welcome to County Manager Claudia Hager. Welcome. Congratulations on being appointed as County Manager. We look forward to continuing to work with you to make sure that all the needs of Durham Public School students and Durham students are accounted for, and we know we're in good hands with you. The next item on our agenda is agenda review and approval.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Ms. Byer to approve the agenda for today's meeting. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. It passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from August 6, 2024.
Move we
Commissioner
approve the
Jacobs.
minutes from August 6th.
And I was going to second, but I do have two follow-up questions related to the agenda, though.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Harold Goff, seconded by Ms. Commissioner Jacobs, to approve the minutes from August 6, 2024. Is there any further discussion?
I just
Mr.
want to,
Jacobs?
this is a great thing about minutes because it reminds you about things that were discussed. I just wondered at some point, maybe at the end of the meeting, if we could get an update on the Durham pre-K agreement that was being worked on, and also whether we do, Matthew Palmer had requested that we form like a facilities committee between the city, the county, and Durham Public Schools, and I just wanted to get a status update on that.
Thank you for bringing those to our attention. Do you know who was assigned those action items?
No, I think the facilities, we kind of punted to the leadership of our boards, as well as our managers and superintendent. I know that there ended up being a presentation to the joint city county, so the city could be aware of it.
And we talked about that in agenda prep, and I think the consensus was to bring that to the working committee, the housing working committee. It was related to the housing piece of facilities, or was it?
No, it's related to adequate school
okay.
facilities and how we track our growth and work with the planning department, and for the city to also be aware when they do rezonings and just capturing the real cost of development and planning for the future.
And Commissioner Jacobs, we talked about coming in February with some updates as it relates to capital facilities and processes. This will give both staff time to flesh out some processes. So there's that committee, and then there's the internal work that needs to happen before that starts. So in February, we will be able to share where the county is with our capital planning, as well as update the Board of Education about the process for our update, and which will include facility needs, short-term as well as long-term. And so that was the tentative plan.
Okay, I just don't want to lose sight. Where's Matthew? Because we were also on the trip to Minneapolis together, and just I think what he was requesting related to getting everyone together, city, county, Durham Public Schools, and we learned in Minneapolis too how they really use the role of the private sector also in meeting needs. So yeah.
So I appreciate you bringing that into this space. I do have that same recollection that it was actually bringing city staff into those conversations,
Yeah.
Manager Hager, and
Yeah, that's also what we're planning to
Right.
do. As a matter of fact, Dr. Lewis We've had conversations about what's worked well, what is from a process perspective, and it is building up to exactly what the process that you're talking about. So
Ms. Umstead?
Yes, I just want to add one additional edit or propose one additional edit to the minutes. Just for clarity's sake, we know Dr. Lewis was there on Zoom, but was the incoming superintendent at that point. So I don't know if we can make an edit to say Dr. Anthony Lewis, incoming superintendent, and then have Caddy Q Moore, interim superintendent, just to have that distinction 5 years later, if we look for these minutes, that's really clear.
I would make a motion that we revise the minutes with those corrections.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Jacobs, seconded by Ms. Harold Goff to revise the minutes to reflect the feedback of Ms. Umstead for Dr. Lewis to be noted as the incoming superintendent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We look forward to those updates. And then we have to carry the vote of the minutes approval as amended. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks all. The next item on our agenda is the introduction of the DPS Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer. Dr. Lewis?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. I am super excited to be here with you this morning, but I'm even more excited to introduce you to one in person, a new staff member, and also by way of bio, introduce you to another staff member. Today marks 3 months of me being here, and there were 2 key positions that we needed to fill in order to continue the work that's needed in the district, critical work that's needed in the district. The first one is our Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Larry Webb. He is not here with us today. He is finishing out his duties at his previous district in Franklin County, finishing up his last cabinet meeting today. But however, he has been on the ground with us and making some things happen already. So we're super excited for Dr. Larry Webb to join us beginning November 18th. So a little bit about Dr. Larry Webb. He's been named our Chief Operating Officer of Durham Public Schools. Again, effective November 18th. Dr. Webb has served as Chief Auxiliary Services for Franklin County since 2016, where he oversees construction, budget planning, child nutrition services, maintenance and facilities, transportation, middle school principal mentors, long-term appeals hearing, capital planning, athletics, safety and security, and Title IX. He has also served as a principal and an assistant principal. He actually began his career in education as a director of bands in Dillon, South Carolina. Dr. Webb earned a bachelor's in arts in music education from East Carolina University and holds a master's of arts in administration and supervision from Pembroke State University and a doctorate in educational leadership from Nova Southeastern University. Would you please help me welcome to the Durham Public Schools team, Dr. Larry Webb. Another critical role that we were able to secure an outstanding candidate, Jeremy Teeter, who is with us today. We welcome Jeremy Teeter, MBA, to the role of Chief Finance Officer effective November 4th. Teeter's track record is results-oriented and has been credited with quickly identifying and resolving complex financial and programmatic challenges. Have you identified ours? Quickly. Yes, he has been working again since November 4th. He offers a commitment to quality-focused, people-centric service and collegial collaboration. Teeter earned his Bachelor's of Arts and Master's of Business Administration from Elon University. He also holds membership in the North Carolina Association of School Business Officials. He has served as a financial consultant who has directly advised and supported multiple North Carolina public school systems, including provision of interim finance officer supports in Caswell, Hertford, Northampton, Scotland, and Warren County School Districts. He has also trained and mentored finance staff, completed classified salary studies, and provided ERP conversion support. He has also served Alamance, Burlington, and Caswell counties as Chief Business and Chief Financial Officer respectively, as well as his alma mater, Elon University, and as Assistant Director of Financial Planning. A huge thank you and a shout out to John Kiefer with the county, who sat on the interview committee with us to select Jeremy Teeter. So would you please help me welcome Jeremy Teeter to Durham Public Schools? Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to both of you. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the 2025 BOCC BOE meeting calendar. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the meeting calendar?
I would move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Jacobs, seconded by Ms. Byer to move approval of the meeting calendar for BOCC BOE for 2025. Is there any discussion? Ms. Carter Otten.
I'm wondering if the November 18th meeting is going to conflict with the State School Board Association conference again. I don't see that conference schedule online, but is it the same week every year? And if so, should we go ahead and proactively move?
So we moved this meeting to this day, this year. We moved last year's meeting to accommodate that. Because it's been the third week. Does anybody know? If it's generally the same week, it's always, the last 2 years, it's been the 17th, 18th, 19th week. Ms. Umstead?
I don't know, but I can make a guess that it will be the 17th and 18th because the week before that is Veterans Day, will fall on that Tuesday. And the week after that will be the week of Thanksgiving, which would make the 17th and 18th of 2025, November, probably an ideal time for that conference.
Okay. Would people be comfortable moving us, our joint meeting to the Tuesday after Veterans Day, just like this year?
So next year Veterans Day is on
On a Tuesday.
Tuesday, November 11th.
Okay.
So, but we could look at, I don't know, like Wednesday,
The 12th.
November 12th.
Is there any opposition to November 12th, Wednesday, November 12th? Okay. Is there a motion to change that? Do we need a motion or are we just approving it as amended?
I think I'll make a motion to approve the calendar, to amend the other previous motion, and change, the last meeting to November, oh gosh, was it 13th?
12.
What was it, 12th?
12.
12th, okay.
Second. Yeah, we still second over here.
Yeah, it's been moved by Ms. Jacobs to adjust the calendar. To adjust the calendar for the November 2025 meeting to be scheduled for Wednesday, November 12th, and seconded by Ms. Chavez and Ms. Byer. Okay. All those in favor of the amended calendar, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, use the same sign. It passes unanimously. Thank you all. It took the full 5 minutes, just so we're clear. We're gonna move on to item 4, which is the community eligibility provision usage update. Looks like it's Mr. Palmer. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Chair Rogers, DPS board members, as well as Durham County Commissioners, Dr. Lewis. We have a presentation, a review for school nutrition for this joint meeting today, kind of an early look at where we are for 24-25 and some of our long-term needs that we have to support the feeding of children. So with that, let's go ahead and start the presentation. Wonderful. Thank you very much. With me this morning are Director of Nutrition, James Keaton, Assistant Director of Operational Services, Robin Brooks, and Assistant Director of Food Systems Planning, Dr. Lyndon Thayer. They're going to join me as we walk through our review of the opening of schools for 24-25. Next slide, please. So Director Keaton will talk about our enhancements to the menu, the food that we're serving our children. That is an important place to start. Jim will also give an overview of our increases in eating food with us in our schools. And Dr. Thayer will review the state of our kitchens, what are our inventory and needs associated with that. And then we'll be available for any discussion points you might have flowing out of that. So with that, I'll ask for the next slide, and I will ask Director Keaton to give us an overview of where we are with the food we're serving our children. Jim, please take it away.
Good morning, Chair Rogers, County Commissioners, Board of Education, Dr. Lewis. Appreciate the time. I stand here before you. This is my 19th year with Durham Public Schools, and I'm very pleased to say that for 10 years, we've offered universal free breakfast, thanks to our Board of Education's approval. That has helped increase our breakfast participation numbers significantly over the last 10 years. And during that 10 years, we spent the years working, trying to get universal lunch brought in as well. And through the efforts made last year between the community, organizers, the Board of Education, the county commissioners, we were able to pull that together and finally offer community eligibility for all students in Durham Public Schools. So this is our first year where every child in Durham Public Schools receives free breakfast and lunch, regardless of income or family status. So thank you all for your commitment to that. We really appreciate that. Next slide, please. This is just to show a pretty apple. Next slide, please. Along with free food, you also need to consider that we need to have healthy food. We need to have culturally relevant food, and we need to have food that kids will eat. We looked into that this year because we thought it's not just good enough to give kids free food. We need to improve what we're giving them. So this year, we looked at going through a system with student-led menu planning, and we operated through a youth food policy group. And that was a group of students who came together with Dr. Thayer and worked through menu ideas, what is going on in the culture, what's going on in the community, what are the trends across the area that people are looking at. And then we also had the Unbox group, which was a group of people that came together to look at how can we unbox what we've done. We need to just, we're not in a picnic box. We're going to take that and just burst it out of the box and come up with new ideas. So the menus we had this year were student-led and student-driven. We're excited about that. So what is in that? We brought in culturally relevant foods. You may have heard chana masala on the menu. Tofu has been on the menu. We've had a lot of special fun things for kids to try this year. We've done more scratch cooking. We brought in an outside chef to train our staff on some of the skill sets they need to offer fresh scratch cooking food. And we've also locally sourced more ingredients. When we went to the Board of Education last year with our bids for the year, we brought in food from local vendors, including Glow House, Dawnbreaker Farms, Farmer Food Share, and leaving off Happy Dirt, Piedmont Microgreens, First Hand Foods. We brought in a lot of local vendors into our bid process, and we're actually getting products from those vendors this year. And we're very excited about that. But when good things come in, some things have to go out. So what did we get rid of? This year, we got rid of artificial colors and artificial flavors on our menus. We want the kids to have the healthiest products that we can give them. We also eliminated individually heated items in heated plastic. When you heat plastic, it changes the chemical format and it can cause concerns for child health. This doesn't mean we don't have food that's individually wrapped. Cookies are still individually wrapped. Cereal is individually. So we still have items that are wrapped, but the heating process is not allowed with any individually wrapped products. And we eliminated high fructose corn syrup this year, which is a big thing for child health. So we're really excited about that. And you can see some pretty pictures up here. Miss Davis, Tina Davis at Burton Elementary, serving the vegan chicken local nuggets. These are vegan chicken nuggets that are made locally. The Northern Nights Taquito Scratch Cooking. Northern Nights Culinary won a competition last year with their taquitos, and we wanted to highlight that our menus were off of that this year. And the chana masala, which is culturally relevant and it's been a big impact. Even the people who said kids will never eat that are impressed to see how many kids are actually eating it. Next slide, please. And this brings into mind our actual participation for breakfast and lunch this year. And as I said, we don't expect a huge increase with breakfast because the students are already eating for free. But we did expect an increase for lunch. Sorry. Nationally, the trends show that about 10% increase across districts that go universal community eligibility. And we were being conservative this year when we created our budget. We based it on a 14% because we said, 10% is good, but we can do better. We looked at a 10%, a 14%, and an 18% increase and what that would do to our financial impact. Next slide, please. So when we came up with the community eligibility provision, historically, community eligibility covers reimbursement for all students attending who eat breakfast and lunch. We really want to encourage families to get your kids in there to eat. Effective July 1st, all of our students fall into that category. And we are the largest school district in North Carolina to go CEP district-wide. So we take great pride in becoming the largest. We're not the first, but we are the largest. So, next slide, please. So what you've all been waiting for is the impact. During the 2023-2024 school year, we looked at the data for each individual school. And then we also looked at it for this year, the first full days, 10 days being open. It's hard, you can't really judge just the year rounds because last year there were 5, this year there were 9. Then you have the specialty high schools. So we just looked at the first 10 days that all of our schools are open. The daily participation, the average breakfast increase is up 918 meals extra per day, which is a 12.7% increase. And that's phenomenal considering we weren't expecting an increase for breakfast. So this really has driven home that there are kids who were not getting the meals because they were afraid of the stigma. And when the stigma's gone, they're free to eat. The average daily lunch participation increased 2,114 meals per day. That's 2,000 more kids every day that are getting a meal. They're getting a healthier meal, they're getting a more local meal and a culturally relevant meal, and they're getting it in their schools. So we're very proud of that. And that's an 18.5% increase. That's higher than our highest expectation. So we're thrilled. As I said, this is a start. We're not sure what the trends will continue. We're monitoring them on a regular basis. It's been hard with holidays and schools on intersession, getting numbers to equal out, because if you've got 5 schools on intersession last year and 9 this year, your numbers are fluctuating, but we are monitoring those trends on a regular basis, and we're excited to show that this really has made an impact. And when we annualize that participation, the breakfast increases over 180-day school year, we've been extra 165,240 breakfast meals served. And the lunch meals would be, that should say lunch instead of breakfast, 380,520. That's well over 1/3 of a million meals, lunch meals served every year in Durham Public Schools because these children get to eat for free. So we want to thank you all for your support, and we look forward to continuing this trend, and we look forward to whatever support you can provide in the next presentation, piece of the presentation. Next slide, please. And I'm going to bring up Dr. Lyndon Thayer, She'll be discussing the state of our kitchens. And I do want to recognize Robin Brooks, our Assistant Director of Operations. Her team has been instrumental in making sure that these new recipes work, that the food is being cooked properly, and that the students are being served with the most friendly, customer-focused way that they can. So Robin Brooks, thank you for your support.
Right. See if I can balance this. All right, County Commissioners, Board of Education, DPS staff, thank you for having us. Again, I'm Lyndon Thayer, and I will be talking about the state of our kitchens, so we can go to the next slide. We are doing fabulous things in school food in DPS. And to keep doing those fabulous things, we need the infrastructure to support our staff as they move into this new world of more scratch cooking, more locally sourced ingredients that we need to break down and process, and more creative ideas from our students. Our first unbox meeting, that Youth Food Policy Council of this school year, is tonight. So we're about to embark again on a journey with those students who are going to be engaging with us, learning about school food, learning about food systems, and setting the course for next school year and beyond. So we can go to the next slide. All right, we have set new standards for our kitchens in order to meet our own very high expectations. We started this process several years ago. There was a Cummings report from 2019. We now do annual inventory on our kitchens, both equipment and smallwares. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more. There's a facility master plan happening as we speak. So like I said, we've been doing this annual work for several years now. We have a new repair and response process with our partners over in building services, because this is really a joint effort between what our staff can do and what we need our help from other departments. So we have that process in place and it's working quite effectively. We have a shared approach around both the maintenance and also funding for some of the equipment. Some of that equipment belongs to school nutrition, and some of it belongs to the school building itself. So we need to work together in order to make that happen. And we've completed several rounds of formal bid processes to try to address some of our most egregious equipment issues over the last few years. And the most recent, we can go to the next slide, sorry. The most recent of which is just this past August for 19 new dishwashers across our school district. So we are moving on to the next slide again. That long-range facility assessment in 2019 identified at that point unmet needs in our school nutrition programs. And if we go to the next slide again, we have updated the learning environment guidelines that guide our expectations for those kitchens. So as we move forward, I'm going to talk a little bit about those guidelines, and then we'll talk about the current master plan process. Next slide. So one of our new expectations is that we are moving away from gas and moving to electric equipment. And that will include everything from our tilt skillets to our combi ovens to our convection ovens, our steamers. That's a big change. We think that's really important. There have been multiple missed school days annually as a result of gas leaks across our district. And so that's something we're working in partnership with our friends and facilities as well. You can see here the full list, and I won't belabor it here. We can go to the next slide. But just in general, we need more dry storage and cold storage space, particularly if we're moving to fresh scratch cooked product. We need to store those items, and we are missing that storage in a lot of schools. We are currently monitoring remotely with digital sensors all of our cooling equipment, which is great. And that's a big improvement over where we were 2 years ago. So we can tell at any moment from my phone, from a lot of our staff's phone, what's happening in any district's cooler that you want to know about. And that helps us save on product loss as well as keeping kids safe. We need better lighting and break rooms for our staff. That's actually a federal requirement that we are missing the mark on. Our staff don't have a dedicated space to take their breaks during the day. Next slide. A few more include water bottle refill stations for our students, more storage for serviceware and utensils, more creative service facilities such as kiosks out closer to where kids are coming in, for example, for breakfast. Several of our schools already do breakfast in the classroom, breakfast in the hallway, but how can we be more creative in meeting students where they are? And things like high top booths and round tables, especially at our higher levels, how to make our kitchen, our cafeterias more engaging for students visually, as well as with the great food we're serving. Next slide. So all that said, Our immediate need is $13.3 million. That is what it will take to meet those new standards, those learning environment guidelines that we have set for our kitchens. And that is all in the service of our students. It will allow our staff to serve our students to the best of their ability. It will allow us to produce fabulous product every day. And then the annual maintenance cost is about 1.6 million from there. We've talked over the years about different ways to fund this, and that will be an ongoing discussion. County funds, ESSER funds, grant funding. You can go to the next slide. And next slide again. And I think we end with an apple. So I'll turn it back over to Matthew, and I think he'll manage our questions. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Lum.
Did you, okay. Thank you so much for that presentation. It was really great to see all of the different ways, and this is actually something that Councilmember Caballero and I have talked about in depth about the culturally relevant foods as well, especially since our students are 80% Black and Brown population, making sure we get those culturally relevant meals, I'm sure will engage our students more. I did have a question on the last piece of the presentation, that 13 million. So that includes the designated staff space that was mentioned as well? Or is that just for the actual cooking facilities?
That number is specific to the equipment.
Equipment, okay. So do we have the numbers like for the other pieces of like the designated staff break room, all of that? And then also in line with that question, is that 13 million taken into consideration like the new schools that we're building? It's including, like if some of the schools, like for DSA, for example, is it including the needs that we have in the current DSA building, or does it subtract DSA since we're building a new one?
Sure. A couple questions there. I'll answer one high level and then I'll ask Dr. Thayer to layer in additionally. So Lyndon had referenced our comprehensive 2025 facility master plan. She's right behind me. Here we go. So with that, let me just say briefly, when we are doing our facility walks with our architects and engineers for that facility master plan, it is a comprehensive look at all of our campuses, both how we teach, what we're teaching, our student enrollment, our programming, if you will. This number here is reflective of the equipment needs, tilt skillets, ovens, dishwashers, things of that nature that are more immediately actionable. Some of our long-term improvements to the overall envelope of the building will be reflected more in the facility master plan, or what we would call, it will lead to an update to the capital improvement plan. Yep. So that's a near-term answer. And then to drill deeper, I'm going to ask Lyndon to share more about the equipment.
And also, while she comes up, the new schools we're building, are they taking into consideration these federal requirements and building these staff break rooms?
So our team is now a part of that process, starting with DSA. That's the first one where we've been at the table. So DSA onward, yes. And then you had asked about whether the 13 million includes, for example, the old DSA. No. So we're taking into account that DSA will be a new building, and we are not including those numbers to upfit what the old kitchen would need in that 13 million.
So the new schools like New Northern, that doesn't have the designated break room space areas.
Correct.
Even though that's a newly constructed school.
Correct.
But what about the equipment? I'm sorry if I missed that. So I particularly wrote down Lions Farm, Northern Murray, Massenburg. Do those schools have the equipment that they need? And is the request to upgrade all the other schools? Because you said all schools in the slides. And I just want to make sure that I understand if those meet the mark or not.
Right. So this 13 million will get all schools up to standard. Lions Farm is an example of a school that did have all of the pieces of equipment that we hope to have in each school already in place. So that number is 0 for that school. Northern wasn't perfect, but I don't have anything listed for Northern either. It'll get put to the bottom and we'll bring it back up 10 years from now. Yeah.
Anything on Murray Massenburg?
Murray Massenburg is also okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Anybody else have questions? Okay, Ms. Carter Otten and Ms. Harold Goff. Ms. Carter.
It sounds like we're getting some good feedback from students to inform what we're doing for school nutrition. And I'm wondering if there are some ways that we're getting feedback from families also about what they like and what they don't like about some of the changes, what more they would like to see. And then also how we're hearing from our staff about how this has impacted them and what more they need to best support the changes.
I'll reference that to Director Keaton and Dr. Thayer as well. We've been talking with both stakeholder groups, parents, as well as staff.
Good morning, sorry. I would just like to tack on to what you were saying about the equipment. The 1.6 million annually would also fund equipment needs going forward for the Murray Massenburg's Lion Farm as pieces of equipment start to fail. So they do fall into that realm, just not currently. The student involvement has been a big piece with our menus. That's been important to us. The parent involvement, Dr. Thayer has created a online group where parents can join in. It's the third Wednesday. Oh, I'm sorry, the first Wednesday of every month in the evening, and parents can join virtually. They come online, they ask questions, they talk about what they want to see. It's called the Good Food Meeting, and I've sat in on several of those. And it's been interesting to hear the comments from the parents and to be able to share with them what we're doing. And for our staff, this was a challenge for them, to be quite honest. You're asking them to do things they've never done with equipment that's not working in schools that are not set up with the capacity to do what they need to do. We have some schools that don't even have what RN Harris had renovations a few years ago. It doesn't even have a walk-in refrigerator. And you want to increase the amount of fresh produce with no refrigeration. So those are some of the important things that are in this $13 million need. But it was a challenge for the staff. They had to learn new skills. They're working with equipment that's not working properly. But they've really stepped up. And at first, there was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of anger, as they should be. They should have that emotion. But they've really stepped up. I'm really proud of this team. They've come forward with their concerns. We've met with them. We met with them as a large group. And then we took that back to a elementary, middle, and high school virtual meetings so that they could all share their feedback on the November menus. That worked. We were able to hear them. We were able to put some of their concerns into place. We were able to put some of their suggestions into place, like bringing back the hot dog. So we have worked with the staff on that. And then after that November meeting, we decided virtual just isn't cutting it. We need the hands-on. So this month, as we started looking at the December meetings, menus, we met with them at their regional supervisors meetings so they could actually talk one-on-one and share thoughts. And it was much more interactive that way. People who didn't speak up virtually actually spoke up. So the December menus that we've worked out have included even more staff input. So we have taken that very seriously, and we're going to continue working with them on a monthly basis.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Harold Goff.
Thank you. Thank you for your last comments. You addressed some of what this question is going towards. There's a couple questions, but one is, my understanding is that in some buildings, they weren't able to serve the planned menus. And you just addressed that because they don't have the infrastructure to prepare those meals. And so these beautifully planned menus are amended. And so then for some of our families, especially our vegan families, they were so excited to have options. Like I've noticed even that there's a lot more options for children who don't eat meat. But if they don't have the infrastructure to prepare certain things, then they go, trying to prepare and they're not able to know if they need to send food with their kids or not. So thank you for addressing that. I see that there's some serious infrastructure needs so that we can really implement what it is that's planned in a lot of our buildings. That's not really a question. You pretty much answered it. The question I do have is about, I love the fact that more of our kids are eating. This is really needs to be celebrated. There seemed to have been like another issue where a lot of food was wasted prior to, and so by having culturally relevant options and more appealing food for the youth to consume, I would imagine that we would have less food waste. I'm also wondering, with the food that's left over, what happens to it? Are children able to take that home to their families? What happens to some of that food? I know some of it is not, is perishable. Do we have options as a district for that? Are families able to take leftovers home, or how does that work?
Okay, so I think I can answer the second part fairly easily. The first part, I'm going back to when you were talking about the vegan and items like that and food waste. Some of the issue is also around product availability. The vegan nuggets, we never in our wildest dreams could imagine the number of kids that were going to take those vegan nuggets. So when we first got them in, we were planning a couple cases per school. We were flying through those things so fast that we couldn't even keep them in stock. So we could not provide those at all the schools. We have added items like sun butter sandwiches. We've added the vegan burgers, we've added salads, things like that to help offset some of the need of when we don't have available products. But it was just, we were shocked at how many kids would eat vegan chicken nuggets. It was amazing. So as far as food waste goes, there was a lot of waste last year. We've never quantified it. We've never actually done plate waste studies, which is something we want to do this year, because we still hear that food is going in the trash, but it's all anecdotal. We don't have any, some people say, oh, all the kids are throwing the food in the trash. Well, 18% more are eating. Are they all just taking the tray and throwing it away? It doesn't seem likely. So we've worked with the Durham Dine health dietitians with the county, and they're going to come in and do some plate waste studies at some of our schools to see what products actually are being thrown away and at what percentage, so we can get a better idea of, instead of just anecdotal. We also hear good anecdotal things. EK-PO participation there is up over 30%. And the principal said kids aren't throwing the food away anymore. And the staff at the kitchen are saying they're surprised that the kids are eating all the stuff that they're making because they didn't think it was going to work. So right now we have is anecdotal. So we are working on plate waste studies to get some actual numeric feedback data that we can work with. The other piece about taking food home, the federal government only allows us to provide one meal per child per day, and we're not allowed to give them extra. And because of liability concerns, we're not allowed to donate or give away our food. It has to be disposed of. We've had that brought up several times over the years. There are so many people out there ready to sue that we cannot risk giving food out, because we can't be sure of the food safety and the handling of that food once it leaves our kitchens. We're considered permitted restaurants in Durham through the health department. So everything we do has to be under a permit, child nutrition permit. Unfortunately, we also can't do, people ask, can we do composting sites out behind the schools, like big bins, and the health department doesn't allow that because of rodent activity and things like that. So it's a risk that we just have not been able to take on.
Thank you so much. We have a queue, Mr. Tab. And I'll put you on it. Ms. Carter is next, then Ms. Chavez, Ms. Jacobs, then Mr. Tab.
Well, thanks. You can see that this topic of school meals is very interesting to us. We all have things that we're thinking about and want to say about it. I have been interested in this topic for 20 years, and we talked about it when I was on the school board, and we made so many improvements. Even then, Jim, you've been here 19 years and I've been here 20. And I remember you and I were on the School Health Advisory Council, and I think this was when you took over as the Director of Child Nutrition Programs. And I'll never forget, we were talking about ways to improve the quality and nutrition and deliciousness of our school meals. And you said, I like big ideas. I like new ideas. And you have really taken that characteristic and made great things happen in Durham Public Schools around school meals. So thank you. Thank you so much for the work that you've led over the 19 years that you've been here. And what a great report. I feel like schools are already the largest anti-hunger program in our communities, and we're going to be serving even more children and with better quality food, locally sourced food, even more of that. It's fantastic for our food system too, not just for our children. So I really appreciate the fact that we've moved in the direction of the community eligibility where everyone eats breakfast and lunch for free. And I just think it's really going to pay off in many, many ways long term. A few questions that I have. One is the equipment differences between schools. Do you feel like that's leading to disparities then in what you can serve children, or are you serving a standard meal across all schools?
So it does affect our ability to be consistent. As part of the legs, the learning guidelines, we would like to have every kitchen needs to minimally have a steamer, an oven, a braising pan, tilt skillet, the things they need to have so they could just basically do a menu. There are dream items like combi ovens, which allow you to steam, fry without oil, bake, roast, broil. You can do everything in one oven, and you can do it in different sections. You can be basting in one part and frying in another in the same oven. Just amazing things that we could use, but those are $50,000 each. And to put those at 56 schools is a large investment. So those are part of the legs to put those in as put in every school. Currently, we have 11 schools that have those, and those schools, the New Northern has 4 of those. It's amazing the capacity of things they can do. And then you have other schools that have just a single oven that will only hold 6 sheet pans. And if you're trying to serve baked French fries, you're trying to serve chicken nuggets, you're trying to serve cobbler, there's not enough room to be able to cook all that at one time. So yes, it is a big challenge and be able to consistently offer the menu. We do have different menus. Elementary has one level, middle, elementary and middle are on a K-8 menu, and high schools are on a separate menu. So there is some separation. And the high schools this year, we didn't mention it, but we implemented build your own bars at the high schools where they're building their own nacho bars, taco bars, burrito bars, and the kids are going through and choosing their items sort of like a Chipotle line. So their capacity is different, but they also have more equipment at the high school levels.
So are you serving different food than at the elementary schools between, like Murray Massenburg is eating different food than Lakewood Elementary, or, just an old school versus a new school?
No, they're all still on the same menu. They are
They
all
are on the same
yeah.
menu, but it's a challenge, is
It's a
what I hear you
challenge,
say.
yes.
So that's important. We don't want disparities, and you're working to make sure we have highest quality food at all schools. But that would be another reason why it's very important to invest in this capital equipment. And so I know at one time there was interest in a study and analysis done as to whether it might make sense long-term to have a centralized kitchen for cooking and then distribute the meals out. But do you all think that this is a better approach? You're laughing.
I'm just laughing because probably about 10 years ago, Dr. Thayer was working for another group, and she came to me and she said, "What would be your big dream?" And I said, "I want a central kitchen where I don't want to cook all our food and ship it out. We need to have our staff in our schools. We need to be cooking, but there are items that take extra skill sets that can be made in one place and sent out. And it could also be used for training facility for our staff. It could be used for catering. We currently do 5 charter schools. All that food could be done in one area. And it was my dream that I wanted this. So they went.
Because you like big
I
ideas.
love it. So they actually went and they got together a study, and they had, it was a feasibility study paid for by the county, the city, the Duke Hospital, and Durham Public Schools, and the Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation. And they did a feasibility study. We came up with the plans. We had the building schematics. We had everything laid out. Retail space, facility space that we could rent out to local food trucks. It was a massive undertaken, and we even had locations planned out. It was going to cost about $13.5 million. That was before COVID. Then COVID hit and it hasn't gone anywhere. So if anybody wants to resurrect that, we still have the plans for it all. And would love to do something like that. And I think it could really impact our ability. We're trying that on a small scale right now. We've taken the old Northern High School and we've converted that kitchen into we're calling it our central hub kitchen right now because we don't have a better name. We have a team up there that are cooking the food for the 5 charter schools and transporting it out to the charter schools. They're doing catering for district events. And we're actually have a lot of our staff up there daily working. So we're small scale doing that, but it's at the old Northern Kitchen. So
I don't know. I mean, that seems like something that all of you all might want to consider going forward is what is the best financial approach for being efficient and effective and, opening up the ability to serve the best food and do all these other sort of cool things that you were mentioning. But if it's 13 million to get equipment in all of our schools, it was 13 million, it's at least 26
Yeah.
million now. To have it, but long term, it'd be great if someone had the capacity to do that analysis. And I know there's some brilliant people here who do, so maybe
Quick
y'all
question.
can do that.
I'm gonna ask, sorry, Chair Rogers, the charter schools, so they pay the DPS for, okay.
yes. Yeah, we invoice them based on the number of meals we deliver to each charter school.
Okay.
Yes.
So and this equipment cost that you've given us, does it include equipment for washing dishware so that you don't have to use styrofoam, or have you switched away from styrofoam?
So years and years and years ago, before some of you were born, Durham used to have severe flooding, droughts. And at the time, South Point Mall was just being built and they had severe droughts and they were making restaurants use only paper plates and plastic silverware, and you had to ask for a glass of water at PF Chang's. And at that time, the county had the district remove all dishwashers from all schools. And we were only allowed to put in pot washers, so we can just wash pots and pans. So we don't currently have the capacity to be able to wash trays and silverware and things like that. In order to get back to that washing, we would have to put dishwashers in every school, but we would also, we would have to change water lines, we'd have to change sewer lines. There'd be a large infrastructure cost to that. So that's not something we've gone away from yet. We're still doing disposable, but we're currently doing disposable items that are compostable.
Good.
And I know Dr. Thayer has been working on ideas around working with outside companies that will bring your trays to the kitchens. We serve from them, then they pick them up, they take them to their facility and wash them and bring them back.
Yes.
There's a significant cost to that. So right now, that's what's keeping us from moving in that direction.
And there are costs to not doing that too. They're just not as tangible. So please, I urge all of you to keep thinking about these important aspects of this discussion, and let's solve it going forward. And then I'll be quiet. I don't want to say anything else except that I have a grandchild, Lou Francisco, and he loved the vegan nuggets. He told me about them. It's one of the things he likes to talk about is the food that he eats at school every day at Lakewood Elementary School. He's having a great year, y'all. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you, team, for the work that you're doing.
Ms. Chavez, Ms. Jacobs, Mr. Tabb, Ms. Umstead, Ms. Byer, Commissioner Burns. Thank you for joining the queue, like I told Mr. Tabb a few minutes ago.
All right, well, thank you so much. We continue to be excited about this initiative. And I wanted to encourage everybody, if you haven't asked the child about the meals, to ask a DPS student about the meals so you can get firsthand anecdotal experience on that. And I also wanted to encourage people, if you haven't listened to or read the NPR piece from the spring featuring Mr. Keaton, I encourage you to do that because that was really informative and it was awesome that we were featured that way. I also, I just want to say I'm excited about the widening of our students' palettes because early exposure will, help our students to to just be more receptive to different foods. And so I think it's really awesome that some of the things that you would think kids might not go for, they really have. And then when I was running for this office, a concern I heard was about the food. And although I know improvements have been made over time, but I'm really amazed at in the past 2 years, the leaps and bounds that you all have been able to do, that we've been able to do. So I'm really excited about it. And I think it's awesome that you are involving youth and parents and staff in these future decisions about what to serve. So I have a few questions. Where are our staff currently taking breaks?
Currently, most of them go out in the dining room and sit and have their lunch out there before the students come in.
Okay. And how many schools do have break rooms or don't have break rooms?
I'm not sure. I know of a few, like I know Hillside has one. I know of a few, but not that many, because most of our elementary schools are built around the same time, and they're all built on the same floor plan, like Hillendale and Little River and Southwest, Forest View. They're all the exact same floor plan, just different scale,
Okay.
and none of them have that capacity.
Okay, thank you. And all right, with this central kitchen idea, am I hearing that this would be revenue generating?
That was the intention, that it would generate revenue not only from the charter schools and caterings, but also from facility rental, like refrigeration space, freezer space, and prep kitchen space for food trucks or other. At the time, Firsthand Foods was looking to grow and they needed a place to store frozen food, but there's no place around here to rent freezer space. So yes, it would be revenue generating. And we also met with I believe it was the city, talking about the workforce people that they were trying to place, being able to come out of correctional facilities and go into meaningful work in that type of facility. So there were a lot of aspects built around that feasibility study.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's something worth thinking about going forward. I'm interested in big ideas that would both support our students but also generate revenue. So I think, we need to be creative. So I'm interested to see if that's something we'll discuss again now that we're a bit post-pandemic. And then lastly, I wanted to ask, where does the charter school revenue go?
So the charter school revenue goes into the school nutrition account, and it funds the food costs, of course. We're an enterprise fund where all money we bring in has to cover our food costs, our supply costs, our labor costs, and equipment needs. So it goes right back into our fund. It pays the staff that work in the kitchen, their benefits. It pays for the food, the equipment, and things like that. It all goes back to school nutrition.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobs, Mr. Tab, Ms. Umstead, Ms. Byer, Commissioner Burns.
I just want to congratulate all the staff that have been involved in rolling out the CEP. It is amazing. It is so exciting to see the impact that it's having on our students. And at the end of the day, this is about our students being healthy and also about their academic achievement. And we know that having food to eat, and especially nutritious food, is positively correlated with improved student outcomes. So it's very exciting. I'm glad that you are focusing on training, and getting feedback from all the stakeholders is really critical. One of my questions is, are you going to be doing any surveying of all of the stakeholders, staff, students, and parents and families related to this at some point?
So I don't know how much I can say. We recently applied for a grant through the Chef Ann Foundation. And part of that would be surveying all of the groups as part of that grant funding. Where that is our goal, yes, is to move forward with that information. Because the more stakeholders we can get, the more success we'll have.
Okay, fingers crossed on the
yes.
grant.
Yes.
And another one of my questions was related to the funding. I know you referred to obviously the county grants, ESSER. Has there been any discussion about not looking at funding, you know, a DPS kitchen fund that the community could help support as well as the private sector businesses? This just feels like something that I could see a lot of support for and people being really excited about. And so just wondering if there's been any discussion about that.
Internally, our department, we've had discussion. We haven't moved it forward to administration yet. We have discussed ideas. There are so many organizations out there that have, when you say to somebody, we need $13 million, it's a big ask. But when you say to somebody, we need $5,000 for a steamer at Brogdon, that's not a big ask. And there have got to
Exactly.
be community partners that be willing to fund that. So trying to find the way to wrap that into one piece and get people to support as opposed to the bigger package. So we have been having those discussions internally. What does that look like? What does the public ask look like? We don't want to look like we're going out begging the community for money. So it really has to be an administration decision on how we approach that, but it is something we're considering.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it brings to mind years ago, McKinney helped Urban Ministries, this is about 10 years ago, do an amazing fundraising approach where they did exactly that, which is, you know, breaking down the actual needs that people can contribute to Urban Ministries and made it very real for people. And so I don't know if we could get somebody like McKinney to come in and help us again, but and then just, I was also wondering, in what ways are you working with the county? I heard you mention the DIME program. Obviously, we have a food security coordinator and there's a lot going on. A lot of our staff and departments work around food and nutrition. So just in the local food system, just wondering about those, where that type of collaboration.
Sure, we worked with the dying, those are dietitians who work in elementary schools that are high, free and reduced. And they've been in the elementary schools for several years. This year, they've actually moved into the middle schools and they're currently looking to hire somebody to go into the high schools as well. So we work with them on a regular basis. Raina Bunag, I'm not sure if any of you know Raina.
Yes.
Raina was our intern probably 14 years ago.
Okay.
And then she went to work as the head of the dine and now she's moved on. We also participate in the monthly Durham food security online meetings, virtual meetings and things. So we do have a lot of direct interaction, and the local Durham County people come to our SHAC meetings, the School Health Advisory Committee meetings as well. So there's a lot of great interaction. We appreciate it.
Fantastic. Great. And related to the upgrades, you know, Heidi touched on this a little bit. Will you therefore be looking at how to prioritize those investments based on the disparities and the needs?
Yes, actually, Dr. Thayer has a massive spreadsheet of each school and each piece of equipment and how long it's projected to keep working, and then when it needs to be replaced going forward, because most equipment only lasts 7 to 8 years. So that's already in a long-range facility workbook that Dr. Thayer has been maintaining. So,
Yeah. And lastly, I would ask if you could please resend out the central kitchen study to all of us. I know Commissioner Carter and I both worked on that.
Oh.
So, but yes, yeah, well, we helped champion it. We were championing it. But it would, I think it would be great to send that out. And I remember a part of that was also, you know, to Emily and Joy, and to kind of touch on this too, which is part of it was to help support families there was a vision that it would be also a place that families could get inexpensive meals as well. So it was, yeah, it was a very exciting concept. So be great to revisit that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Tab, Ms. Umstead, Ms. Byer, Commissioner Burns.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your report. Most of my questions that I had, Commissioner Carter has already asked them, so thank you very much. I do want to speak on behalf of the students. One of the things that they have shared with me is about the portions that they get. Now that it's free lunch and breakfast, can they go back for seconds since we're getting rid of food as well?
Unfortunately, the federal government, because it's a federally funded program, we're only allowed to give the portion that the government considers the recommended portion, and we're only allowed to give one meal per child.
But then we get rid of food.
Exactly. It's a frustrating system.
Okay.
Yeah, it needs some legislation changes.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Umstead, Ms. Byer, Commissioner Burns.
Thank y'all for this presentation. It's really exciting to see that the vision kind of come into fruition and all the work that you all have put in and all of our child nutrition folks across the district who are working really tirelessly to implement these changes. So thank you. I have a question just about some of the funding pieces around equipment needs. So we know we have our capital improvement, or we have our facilities assessment happening right now. Will some of the kitchen needs also be in that facilities assessment as well? Or will there be updated numbers after we do, like, kind of try to figure out what's the connection between the two of those?
Indeed, Ms. Umstead. So to your question, part of what we've been able to do is, let me rewind to a little bit of a wider lens. We discovered that there was not a long-term intentional investment in the nutrition infrastructure and facilities long-term. We have kitchens where there's air conditioners hanging out the window, right? And swinging screen door, right? So the disparities that we've referenced today are very real, but we had never fully inventoried them, nor had a plan to address them. The long-term kitchen equipment needs go back at least the 6 years that I've been here within the capital improvement plan. However, oftentimes they've shuffled to the bottom for a variety of reasons. We at one point thought we had county support for ARPA funding for equipment several years ago. This has been a durable gap in our equitable ability to service children, right? So naming that for the room that this is not a new topic. And for the board, this was in the August 8th board packet. All the information we're sharing today is consistent with what we've shared historically. The upcoming facility master plan is the first transparent, on the table, lay out all the data and look at it. That's going to include the design features that Dr. Thayer referenced, as well as the equipment needs. It is a comprehensive thinking of an oven just like we think of an HVAC. All of these pieces need to work together in order to service our children. And we haven't had that inclusion for nutrition within our larger operational envelope historically. I think this is the first chance we really have to say, this is what this school A really needs comprehensively. So it is reflected, it will be reflected in that final product.
Okay, that's helpful. And then as we're making decisions about capital improvement plans and priorities, kitchens would be included as, oh, this school has a kitchen and this and this and this, so therefore it might move to the top of the list. I might be getting ahead of myself here, but I'm thinking about where the alignment is and then what might need to come first if we had kitchen needs that needed to come before a school building.
And one of the benefits of, I shouldn't say benefit, but one of the considerations or points of conversation is that our equipment needs are oftentimes within our kitchens. I won't say a low hanging fruit, but they're things that we can, Jim referenced a piece of equipment at a middle school, right? There are direct actionable points that we can make quickly and more tactically with agility rather than we need $50 million for this school wholesale. Now they will roll into what we call our facilities conditions index. That's at FCI. And that's a rank order of, we've looked at the HVAC, we've looked at the parking lot, we've looked at the playground, we've looked at the kitchen. All of that will come in together to a total envelope cost. And again, that's the first part of 2025 when we take the facility conditions that we have. Those are what we have truly, the standards that we're working with, what we want. And the delta is going to be our need that we work with the board and the public on as we head into 2025.
Thank you. That's helpful. You might want to stay there, Mr. Palmer, because I have another question and it might be a tag team. So following that with the 1.6 kind of annual cost, we have an outlay from the county on annual costs. You all see this as in addition to that outlay, is that correct?
So this year, for the first time, we have within the operational capital outlay about that 1.6 already earmarked in the approved budget for 24-25 within operational approval.
Okay.
Now, the how and the funding source for that, I think, is an ongoing conversation for the room.
Mhm.
What is eligible within that capital outlay? What is going to check other boxes that might have restraints with it?
Mhm.
But going back 5 years ago, our entire capital outlay for all of Durham Public Schools was 1.5 million. So it shows the growth and the partnership collaboratively between the Board of Education and the county commissioners. We are trying to be as transparent as possible. Our stacked up deferred maintenance costs are very real, and this is where they play out oftentimes. The dishwasher isn't there, or the tilt skillet doesn't work, or the oven has been waiting apart for 6 months or 16. Right? And our staff with some skill, and I want to lift up in the room with us, not only Director Keaton and Dr. Thayer, but Robin Brooks, our Assistant Director of Operations within nutrition, every day is working with what we've got between what's on the menu, what equipment works, what's our staffing today, and what can we put out for those kids that's going to be in compliance with regulation at a state and federal level.
I appreciate that and the work that y'all do. I feel like this is a department where we keep asking folks to do more, but not do the investment piece of the right equipment and the break rooms and having the right training and all of that. And somehow folks make it work. Think about mostly Black women back there who are making this work for our students every day. So thank you. And we need to make some investments to make sure we have what we need. It's not just for today, it's for the next 5, 10, 15 years so that students can have great food. Again, not just now, but for the future as well. So thank y'all. Sorry, I have one more point. You all talked about in the 13 million, we're talking about new facilities, but I wonder, should we just be including costs for the Old Northern or for Durham School of the Arts? I know the old Durham School of the Arts we haven't made decisions as a board around what is going to happen with those facilities, but I mean, if we're using some of that now for some costs or for some cooking foods and meals, we should be considering are those options, right? What would the options be for those facilities as more things are coming online? So I don't want us to forget about what we have currently available and what the future could hold for some of these spaces.
One of the things that Jim and Lyndon have lifted up is that these are permitted restaurants, right? And that ability to service food out of, for example, the Old Northern Kitchen, I will again point back to the team and say, they brought it up and said, this is an opportunity. We have an approved permit now. Let's continue to deploy that. The future use of Durham School of the Arts is certainly a community conversation as we look towards that comprehensive big picture facility master plan. I hope what you're hearing from our staff is that, and no pun intended, but there's no fat in that 13.3. That is truly, we can tie it back to every equipment, every kitchen that is facing a deficit right now.
It's like I'm thinking how we hold today and the future at the same time. And some of that can be for us as a board. How do we hold both of those? Appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Ms. Byer, Commissioner Burns.
Just here with gratitude to this Board of Commissioners, to this county manager and leadership of our child nutrition staff for bringing this vision forward and bringing it forward so quickly. And if there are ways that the county can honor some of our child nutrition staff, I imagine they would be delighted to do that at their meetings as well, ways that we can lift them up and the heroes that they are in feeding and doing equity work in our community.
Commissioner Carter, we wouldn't be here without your visionary leadership, both on this school board and advocating for healthy nutrition in all of your ways, in all of your leadership. So appreciation to you and your ways of lifting that up. I'm thinking of things that would be helpful both to county leadership and commissioners going forward. If we could share some of the menus with folks as a follow-up step so they can see the amazing choices that are being offered, that we, and just visualize some of the pictures of food. I think that's always super helpful. And also, Dr. Thayer, your itemized spreadsheet of what we could do most urgently, most quickly, and in some prioritized way, I think that would be helpful. We know that we'll have budget talks in the spring, but these needs are here now as we're continuing to feed children. So if you all had, Manager Hager, any flexibility to float funds earlier? I know these are needs that could move immediately, and they're not disruptive to school being in an ongoing way.
Keith
And
in
then-
the back row is about to have a heart attack.
I know, and I'm so glad that he is here, because I know that my next comments are, and I'm just information sharing, right? My next comments is that we are all here together in a grim space, knowing that in Durham, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. But if y'all can talk our food staff on how community eligibility is a threat under Project 2025. It is targeted. Child nutrition and school meals are targeted. If there are any words that you all can bring so that our community can understand that it's going to be imperative that we advocate and join with rural communities, farming communities, county commissioners, Governor-elect Stein, Superintendent Mo Green-elect, to keep feeding children in North Carolina, and to push back about federal threats. Am I wrong that that is part of 2025? Anybody prepared to speak to that? And then the other thing that I think would be helpful for us to continue to share with our partners at the county is the starting wage for a lot of our staff, that we have raised this year, but we still have work to go. And I think if we can share that data with you all as so you'll be clear-eyed with us as we partner going forward. But just deep appreciation that for the work that's been done and the people that are doing it, and ways that we will continue to advocate so that we're not going back in Durham. Thank you.
Commissioner Burns.
My last meeting, these meetings are always so triggering with all this performative allyship that I get to hear. This meeting is as predictable as Pavlov's dogs, because it is literally the meeting where we get the ask, we get the brown paper bag and the pistol about this has been a need for 6 years and we need it immediately now. I think it's really interesting that, we would ask you for a list of what it needs to be prioritized, when quite frankly, whatever this body brings to this body is decided on by this body. It's not necessarily decided on by staff. So, and could I get Mr. Keaton, please? I'm sorry, I hate to move you. I just want to talk to him if that's all right. Director Keaton, I just want to say I'm always enthused when I get to see, oh, don't be scared. I don't like them. You good. Yeah, you good. The last time you presented to us, I'll never forget it. We were talking about ovens. I remember that meeting so clearly. It was during COVID. You were on camera, and we were talking about how many schools didn't have ovens. They had warmers. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, Lord have mercy, these children are going to end up with botulism because we just warming food. I see your affirmative nod. What saddens me is that we still talking about ovens 3 years later. And I can look back through every email I got, and in the requests that we have gotten from certain people, I have not seen that as a priority. I assumed that was something that had been taken care of in my own ignorance, because those are usually one-time costs, and what comes to us is usually reoccurring cost. So thank you for highlighting highlighting that you all have been trying to do this work with a little bit. And I only hate that I can't put out a rallying cry to the community to give you the support that you so desperately need. We sit here talking about what kids need when this has been a problem since then. I remember you told us about how much we were curious in that meeting, and I can remember, I think it was Commissioner Carter that asked how much money did the students, how much money did you all get from free and reduced lunch? I think after everything was done and paid for in the enterprise fund, it was something like $14,000. So you better nod your head. My memory ain't bad.
Yes.
This is the one view. I had something else to do today, but you can't, if I wouldn't have been here today, I couldn't have kept on telling the truth about these people that keep saying, oh, it's Black women working in the lunchroom and we got to move forward. And we'll center Black women when the message suits us. But it was Black women working in that kitchen. I think you said 6 years ago, y'all needed $500,000. Y'all had that list going in. It's been Black women since the day before forever. So let's not center them today so that we can have them to march down there in a couple of months and abuse this woman and this woman. The other question that was put out there, somebody made the statement that we had something like that we thought that the county commissioners were going to be the ones to help with the ARPA funding with the kitchen needs. I really, I'm saying this to the public. I wish you'd have seen my colleagues turn around and look at me because we said that never came to us. That never came to us. So, Mr. Keaton, to whoever lied to you, sir, to whoever lied to you, I'm sorry, but that didn't come to us. If it had have come to us, believe you me, I would have thought, I could, the same way I remember a conversation from 4 years ago, I would have remembered an ARPA conversation from 2 years ago. So I know you and your staff telling the truth. I know some other people are not. But I want to go back to something that Commissioner Jacobs said. Before I do that, to the new COO and to the new CFO, welcome. Hey, we won't be able to work together. I'm pretty sure y'all got a lot to do. To Mr. Tab and Dr. Lewis, please know, my last meeting, you two will sorely be missed, and I will be supporting you from outside of here. That's about all I'll be greeting today. But I want to go back to the Blue Cross Blue Shield study. That $13.5 million, I'm happy Commissioner Jacobs asked that you send it back out because I wanted to see it. That 13.5 was, and then I have two more quick ones after this, was just for that, right? It wasn't like programmatic expansion, like how much it would cost, how many FTEs would be in there. And I'm just asking not to point.
No, that was just for the actual
The building.
building, the parking spaces, the
Perfection.
green spaces, yeah.
Right, so this feasibility, and I remember somebody bringing it up. I'm happy that you're bringing it up this way, and I'm gonna be real honest, I'm happy that it's you that's bringing it to us. I can honestly say that when it was first brought to me, it was not brought to me in the classy way that you brought it to me. It wasn't. There were businesses, and I wish Javanya Lewis was here. There were businesses that came up to us and said, the schools are building the kitchen and they're gonna let us leverage it much like we leverage the cookery. And I thought to myself, well, if we're gonna build a kitchen, it's for the kids. It shouldn't be for businesses. And somebody actually wrote, a business owner actually wrote an article about a promise like that was made to him. And quite frankly, it made me kind of sick to my stomach. So I'm super excited that, there's these other ideas, i.e. workforce training, how we can centralize some of these foods, because I think this comment that you made was some of these things are really skill specific. And so I like that. So if you could send that back out. My only other question, because go ahead, you want to say something about the Hub Kitchen?
No.
Okay, so I like the idea. And if
I just want to say it also brought in like the Bacon Street warehouse where all of our
Right.
food would also go to that facility, and as would all of our central school nutrition staff offices, and it had conference spacing for meetings and things for other people in the district to use. So it was very open facility for usage.
What was the year of the study?
It was 2019.
Okay, so to Commissioner Carter's point, it'll probably this probably doubled at this point, which is, that's everything. So that's not pointed at you. That's on everything. And we were getting through a pandemic, doing the best that we could. So I would be curious as to whether or not the feasibility study needs to go out again so we can have accurate numbers as opposed to just saying, we need to double this. And then I'm curious, but I was gonna ask, but I can look at it myself, to Commissioner Jacobs' point, how could we make this a true PPP? Because I honestly think in order to do it, it would need to be a public-private partnership, especially, because I want to get these past needs taken care of. And I think what we do is a really great, really great job looking at bright and shiny, and we'll run after that. You remember the dogs and Up, And every time a squirrel went by, they said squirrel. Like, that's what this would be. I don't want us to be like squirrel and run after this bright, shiny building that you smile and light up about every time we talk about it, as opposed to fixing the kitchens that are over here. So I would be curious, if you did redo this study, what it would look like to do a PPP, and if Blue Cross Blue Shield would be interested in putting in some dollars. My last question, you said that there are 4 kitchens at Northern, the $450-some thousand kitchens. Are those all for utilization there, or is the culinary school using any of those?
Currently, the culinary school has moved completely out.
Okay, so they're not.
Yeah, we've looked at possibly using the other spaces, but I believe there's some structural issues that the district's working on in those spaces right
So
now.
those 4 are just, and there's a lot of students there. And did you say it was 11 schools that had them?
Had the combi ovens? Yes.
So 11 of them, so.
As new schools are being built, they've been put in like Lakewood Middle,
Okay,
Sandy Ridge, Spring Valley, North, they're being put into the new schools as part of the standard school development.
okay, so about 50 schools, so that's a little less than $2 million.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so you answered a lot of my questions. I hope that you get some of it. I had a question about the charter school pay, but you already answered it. 2 other folks have it. Thank you so much. You getting excited about that type of work. I get excited too. We'll see if this makes it into budget in June. I'll be looking as a faithful citizen.
Thank you.
Mr. Palmer, Mr. Keaton, Ms. Brooks, Dr. Thayer. Thank you all so much for being in front of us today. It takes a lot of courage to be in front of these 2 bodies. And it is clear that you brought your hard work and you put your heart into this presentation and the work that you're doing for students and feeding students every day, as well as your staff, both in all the school sites, making sure that charter school students are getting their meals, as well as the students in our Durham Public School sites. And we are very appreciative of you standing before us today with this presentation. It's clear everybody at the table had something to say to each of you and questions to ask. So there's a passion both on the Board of County Commission and the Board of Education for this. Thank you. And while I'm thanking you, I'd like to thank Commissioner Burns, Commissioner Howerton, who's not here today, Commissioner Carter for their work and their service to Durham, and to Durham Public Schools. Love us or hate us, we appreciate your service. Dr. Lewis, I'm going to turn it over to you to get us back on schedule.
All right, and I will do just that. Again, good morning, everyone. I'm super excited to share a back to school update. And in this update, you will see and hear some staffing numbers, some enrollment numbers, some successes, and some challenges as it relates to the start of the school year. And so we can get the presentation up, and I will ask if there's any colleagues that would want to chime in on any of the pieces, please feel free to do so. We're going to first start by looking at some of our human capital, the current state as it relates to our staffing. You can go to the next 2 slides. One more. Okay, so what you see on the screen is a breakdown as it relates to our staffing categories, all teachers at the levels, pre-K, elementary, middle, and high, as well as EC is our exceptional children teachers, math teachers, and science teachers, those areas that are sometimes critical to find or difficult to find, and then all IAs or instructional assistants at the bottom. So as you can see, this is as of the beginning of October. Those numbers still look very similar. There are some increases in some of those numbers as well. But you can see that for all teachers, we're a little over 100, 110 at the time of this report. Okay. All right. Yes, this is vacancies. Yes. This is not a current count. This is vacancies. I'm sorry. We are very understaffed if this was all of our teachers. Yes, this is current vacancies, 110 with the breakdown. Again, at pre-K, we have 2, elementary, 50, middle, 23, high, 35. And in addition, our EC teachers or exceptional children teachers are at 32, Obviously, EC teachers serve our most vulnerable students. And so has been and always is a critical area to staff. And I will say this, there was a study that was done a couple of years ago that really looked at the drivers as it relates to teacher retention. You will hear me say that retention is the new recruitment. And so we have to make sure that we are doing all we can to retain our current teachers and at the same time building a system, building a salary schedule that will attract new and beginning teachers as well. But as a result of that study, it looked at the drivers that are reasons that teachers tend to stay and or leave the profession. Pay did not make it to the top of that list. However, it was on the list. But at the top of that list, in the top three, I think it was the value that society places on educators. And so this is a ask to the community to just continue to support all of our educators. And I call any staff person that interfaces with a child an educator, whether you're a food service worker, a bus driver, classroom teacher, psychologist, you are an educator. And oftentimes as educators, I've been guilty of it as well, we are sometimes our worst recruiters. Because when there's that young person, whether it's a family member or sometimes a student, and they say they want to go into the field of education, we question them. Do you really want to do that? You know, have you considered the pay? But I also think it's important for us as not only a school system, but as a society to continue to uplift all of our educators and be our own recruiters in that regard. Next slide. Also wanted to share our district forecast and current enrollment. Our enrollment is up. As you can see, what you're seeing there is levels from pre-K to high school, and also planned capacity, our enrollment from 23-24, the 24-25 forecast, and the highlighted column is the 20-day enrollment count for this year. And you can see that total is 31,165 students. That's up from our forecast of 131 students and up from our 23-24 enrollment, a day 40 count of about 134 students. So our enrollment is indeed up. And so that's a good thing. Next slide. And then as our enrollment is up, we're growing and we're putting those bond dollars to great use. And what you're seeing on the screen is a photo from a ribbon cutting at Murray-Massenburg. Although it has been serving students since August, we definitely had the honor to celebrate the building's dedication and ribbon cutting earlier this school year. Many of our commissioners were there as well. This school has already had a profound impact on the community, and we look forward to many of the amazing things that our scholars will accomplish at Murray-Massenburg. In addition, we also broke ground on the Glenn Elementary renovation and the new Durham School of the Arts. Again, thank you to those commissioners that were present at both, all three of those, the ribbon cutting at Murray-Massenburg and the groundbreaking at Glenn Elementary and the new Durham School of the Arts. Next slide. Just let this picture sit there. This is what you heard a moment ago from our scholars that are receiving free breakfast and free lunch. This is the delight and the delight and the joy that is shown on the face of our scholars that are able to take advantage of these free meals. And it was indicated earlier, this definitely helps in terms of our academics and ensuring that our students are well fed and are given a nutritious meal so that they can tackle those two-digit multiplication facts. Next slide. Bit of celebration. We also have been awarded the Department of Education's grant that will provide $11.4 million over the next 5 years to support some of our most significant budgetary items for our Growing Together plan. This grant proposal was developed in collaboration with our Growing Together team leaders, as well as those funded schools and our district leaders from multiple departments, including our career and technical education, the arts, curriculum and instruction, and operations. Now, this grant is significant, and it will allow us to continue to implement our Growing Together for our secondary schools with fidelity. Also, again, want to publicly thank Dr. Rita Rathborn, again, for her leadership in spearheading this grant process. Next slide. Last month was Principals Appreciation Month, and it was only befitting that we awarded and announced our 24-25 Principal of the Year, Dr. Teresa McGowan over at Lakeview. Congratulations to her. It was certainly an honor to present her this award at Lakeview last month and make that special presentation. to this outstanding lifelong educator. Next steps for Dr. McGowan, she will go on to participate in the regionals for the State Principal of the Year honors. Next slide. DPS welcomed more than 2,200 eighth graders from across the district for the Accelerate, which is a career exploration event exclusively for DPS eighth graders. More than 50 businesses from Durham and the Triangle participated in this event at the Durham County Stadium, showcasing careers from a variety of industries and sectors. We know that eighth grade is a critical step for students as they begin to explore their pathways before completing their schedules for high schools and as they consider what they want to be in the future. Additionally, some of our high schools were in attendance to engage with our students. Our new early college, Durham Early College of the Health and Sciences were also present to welcome students as well. And so a huge shout out and thank you to the team for putting this event on, and also our community business partners that participated in this event. This was just one huge spark in igniting the full potential in all of our scholars. Next slide. Many of our commissioners also were present as we welcomed Congresswoman Valerie Foushee and the United States Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Michael Reagan to Southern School of Energy and Sustainability to celebrate DPS being awarded $15 million Clean Bus School Program grant for electric school buses and infrastructure. This was an investment that reinforces our commitment for sustainable practices and ensures that DPS is a leader in clean transportation in the state. So we look forward to receiving these 38 new buses here soon that will definitely have a positive impact on students and staff and our community. Next slide. As mentioned earlier, our Growing Together, I will tell you that it has done just what we thought it would do in terms of levelizing from an equity standpoint, our enrollment in our buildings. Many school districts around the country are grappling with this Growing Together. I think as many school districts around the country, some of the magnet schools worked a little bit too well. And so as we think about the work that needs to be done, we are coming up on our secondary schools. And so those regional meetings have kicked off. Thank you to those that have attended those meetings. There are several opportunities tomorrow and on the 18th for you to attend those meetings. And so these regional events are also listed on the calendar of events on our DPS website. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, it's hard to believe that I'm entering the 4th month as superintendent here in Durham Public Schools, and I've been encouraged by the opportunity that exists in DPS. So far, I've completed 6 listening and learning sessions with 1 remaining, and that's this evening at 6:30 at the new Northern High School. I know all of you will be there. Look forward to hearing your feedback. I've also had an opportunity and a chance to learn from students as well as other employee groups this school year. I've met with bus drivers and other staff groups, and I'll tell you, these conversations have been rich and informative. There are some things that we will continue to work on that may take us a couple of years, but there's also some immediate needs and what I consider some low-hanging fruit and, quite frankly, some fruit on the ground for us to really address the needs of the district and, most importantly, the needs of our students. And so a culmination of these listening and learning sessions will be a presentation of my findings in the post-entry plan coming up in January to the board and to the public. So again, thank you to all that have attended these listening and learning sessions. Again, the final one is this evening, and I often tell staff and the community that listening and learning doesn't just happen during the first 100 days of a superintendent's tenure. That has to continue throughout the years to come. So I look forward to engaging with all of you. Next slide. You may recognize some of the folks on this photo. I think this was a photo from the meet and greet. So thank you to those commissioners that came out. Next slide, a bit of highlights in terms of our academic growth from our most recent assessment results release. Over 80% of all of our Durham Public Schools met or exceeded growth during the 23-24 school year. We also had 5 schools that have been ranked among the top schools in the state for overall growth. JE J.D. Clement Early College was ranked 7th among the state's 2,593 schools for academic growth. So that's a huge accomplishment for the students and staff over at J.D. Clement. We also had some schools that were ranked in the top 100. That's Merrick Moore, Sherwood, Githens, City of Medicine, and Carrington Middle Schools. In addition, we had 17 schools that were ranked among the top 20% in academic growth. And we are also, and so this is a huge celebration, something that we don't need to throw a party for, but acknowledge, because there's still a tremendous amount of work to do. And I will say we are in the middle of looking at some of our charter school data as well. And a lot of times people in the community, parents, sometimes equate charter schools to better. That's certainly not the case. I will tell you that we are the only district that has schools that were ranked as A schools. There are no charter schools that were ranked A schools. And so that's a huge accomplishment. And so again, there's much more work to be done there. Next slide. And you can go on to the next one. As we acknowledge some of our challenges that remain, next slide. We shared these school performance grades, and this is just where our schools are rated based on these letter grades. And sometimes you may hear to schools referred to as failing schools. We have no failing schools. There are no schools that are failing children. However, the state considers schools that are D or F. They categorize those as failing schools. And so we did have an increase in D and F schools. And so for the overall, for the 23-24 school year, over 53% of our schools are A, B, and C schools. And that percentage is down from 63% the year before, but higher than 2 years ago. So still a tremendous amount of work to do there, and we will continue to address those challenges and also provide the support that our schools and teachers so desperately need. Next slide. And so I wanted to share this graphic because there are no easy answers to the challenges that we are facing as a school system, whether they be academic, whether they be operational. And so, yes, we have those aspirations that we all hope for our children. We have those aspirations that we all hope for our school system and for our community. And at the same time, we have concerns as it relates to what will it take to improve the academic outcomes for all of our students and create a system where student outcomes are no longer predicated on race, socioeconomic status, zip code, or any other identity. However, there's a gap between our aspirations and our concerns, and that is the adaptive work that needs to be done. It's not an easy fix. It's not a button we can press. It's not an easy technical solution as it relates to some of the challenges that we are facing. But what it will require is a true case of leadership and from the leaders that are in this room today. Next slide. And so, as I mentioned, there's a gap between where we are and where we want to be, and that gap is difficult because it is indeed adaptive and it will take time. And authority alone won't close the gap. However, leadership will be required to mobilize people for this work. And progress will require us to do something differently. There's things, someone that was credited for the quote, some say Einstein, some say it was another lady that was credited for this quote, but insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And so with this adaptive work, it's going to require us to do something different and to act experimentally, because the fact of the matter, our schools can't do it alone. Our students can't do it alone. Next slide. They sometimes need that additional help, that support, whether it's tying a shoe or providing them the resources and supports that they need, because our students are watching. Next slide. They are watching. Our educators are watching. And so it's important for us to make sure that we are providing those resources, those supports to our scholars and to our schools to ensure that we are making gains each and every year. And that's the name of the game, making sure that we are growing each and every year. That's all I have. And for questions.
Colleagues, questions? Ms. Jacobs?
Thank you so much for this report. And again, we're so glad that you're here, Dr. Lewis. It's hard to believe it's only been a few months because you really have jumped right into the community and building relationships and being very engaged with the Durham community. And I really appreciate that. So one thing it would be helpful for us to get it, our board is just an understanding of where we're at with the budget, the things that, the county funded, especially related to certified and classified staff and also master's pay. And just to have an understanding, I know it may not be, we still may be in flux about that, but I think for our board to understand exactly how what we have budgeted is actually being implemented. Is that something that you are able to provide to us, as a follow-up, or what the status is related to that?
Yeah, and as you probably know, we just presented some additional information to our board this past Monday as it relates to master's pay. And we had those conversations at the agenda setting for this meeting. This is something we'll definitely bring back to the entire commission and the board.
Okay. So I look forward to us, getting that information. And I know now you have a new CFO, so, yeah. And also wondering around the Accelerate event, which is fantastic. Do you know if our economic development staff was involved with that? Because I'm very proud of the economic incentives policy that our board has, which actually includes the companies that the county is involved with an economic incentives agreement with. They have pledged to participate in events like that. So I think it's going to be important for us to know and make sure that those companies, for instance, were at that event or were invited to be at that event. And so I just didn't know if we have been directly engaged with that.
We're finding that out right now, so hopefully we'll have an answer before the meeting.
Just so you all know that that's something that we prioritize, is the companies that we are doing economic agreements with, that they are doing partnering with Durham Public Schools to do career events. A lot of times they will offer to do programs supporting teachers, and even later on internships and apprenticeships as well. So we just want to make sure that coordination is happening. And also the numbers that you shared around the vacancies, I think it would be helpful to know benchmarking. What does that look like compared to last year or with other counties? And I'm also curious about numbers of teachers that actually even started out the school year and that we've already lost. And the reason I'm asking about this, and this is also related to school achievement, is, and you're alluding to this, but I think it's going to be important that we focus, because this is a collaboration, and at the end of the day, a lot of the funding comes down to us, is focusing on the systemic investments. And so systemically, nutrition is a great example, like focusing on nutrition, it just addresses so many things, right, that we're trying to make happen. And when I think about what is impacting student achievement, some of the things for me that come to mind that I would like to understand better are things like class size. Because again, we know that class size impacts student outcomes, teachers' ability to teach, and student achievement. That's like one of the highest factors. Literacy. I would really like to understand what's going on with literacy, and what are we doing and where do we need to improve? What is going on with our phone policy? I mean, that's a national issue, right? What can we do? What are we doing? What aren't we doing? And then mental health. really excited to share that the county, through our alliance, our funding to Alliance, they are going to be, and I'll let Commissioner Carter talk more about this because she's our Alliance rep and knows about this, but we just found out how much money are we going to be allocating for this? Is this to support mental health in Durham Public Schools?
I believe it's over $1 million for it.
Okay, so we are going to be funding over $1 million worth of new investments to support mental health in Durham Public Schools. So, and then the other thing, two other things is curriculum. Just really understanding what kind of curriculum support we're offering to teachers, and are we really thinking about where our country's at right now, focusing on things like critical thinking. And the other thing that comes to mind for me is our education and jobs pipeline. There's some students that we really, when they're in high school, even, how are we getting them out into connected to Durham Tech? That's, so great to see Josephine Clements Dobbs. And we know there's so many students that the classroom isn't the right place for them. And we need to be getting with the CTE program and what we're trying to do with funding good paying jobs and the things that are going on with Duke and Duke Health with getting kids, again, accelerating that into different careers as soon as possible. So those are just things that come to mind that I hope that we will learn more about and talk more about in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Would love for the mental health $1 million with Allied to be on our joint meeting in February. I think this is the first some of our colleagues are hearing about this. Would love to hear an update about that and how that is going to work. I'm not sure if administration is aware.
We'll also follow up with some information ahead of the meeting.
Awesome, that would be helpful. Anybody else have questions, comments for Dr. Lewis in the back to school update? Ms. Carter?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Lewis, for being here with us and for your presentation. Looking forward to your report, what did you call it? Your post?
Century plan.
Yes, your post-entry plan. What do you think, what do you and the board think are some of the main factors that would be supportive in increasing recruitment and retention of teachers, bus drivers, and actually I was wondering how you're doing with bus drivers. Is it wages, something that's tangible like that the county can help with, or is it really other things? You mentioned just sort of the respect that educators feel. But just wondering, how do you feel that the increased wages, is that helping? The increased supplement for teachers, the master's pay, the EC additional pay, the floor on minimum salaries that classified staff make. Just how's that going? Do you feel like it's helping? And what more can we do?
Yeah, yes, indeed, I do believe it is helping, particularly as it relates to our starting salaries. When our staff goes out to recruiting events, the salary schedule is, for the most part, on the table of all school districts, and some of our new teacher candidates will look at that, that starting salary. And so the more that we can increase that, the better. I would love to be the school system where the starting salary is the highest in the state. And so, yes, the more that we can invest in our staff, from whether it's beginning teachers or our existing teachers, from a salary standpoint, the better in terms of them staying and us being able to retain the staff. And It has a lot to do with also the leaders that they work for. So ensuring that we are investing in our principals from the standpoint of providing feedback, from creating cultures, positive cultures in the school buildings, responding to the teacher working condition survey and making improvements there. So yes, all of those factors are critical to retaining and attracting educators. And during some of my first conversations with a couple of commissioners, I shared that it's only right that we report back to the county as the county continues to invest in the school system from a salary standpoint. As a result of this investment, our retention is X%. And so we will work on getting some data back to our board and to the county as it relates to what those investments, what for the fruits of the labor are in terms of the investments from our county, from a retention standpoint, from recruitment standpoint. And I will say the reports that I've received as it relates to what these numbers look like from previous years, they are down from previous years. I'm looking at Dr. Lassane. As it relates to these vacancies, they are down from previous years, but still not where we would like them. And I know there are some conversations in the community. Ms. Wilkins and I had some conversations about teacher housing. You know, the more that we were able to provide additional supports and remove barriers, the better. It could be childcare, you know, and us, again, thinking outside the box and being creative as it relates to removing some of those barriers to attracting and retaining teachers. You know, EC teachers is a critical need there. And so, yes, let's talk about teacher housing, but let's also prioritize where we need to go out and remove barriers and provide supports to our EC educators.
How are we doing with bus drivers?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That was the other piece of that. We are one of the few, or probably the only, I think it's one of 2 or 3 in the state that can train our own bus drivers and reduce that time from about 6 months to 3 months. At our last report, our last board meeting, we have about 37 bus drivers that are in the queue, so to speak. However, we still have some vacancies there. And so we're still also dealing with some bus drivers that are on medical leave, some bus drivers that, and then attendants, you know, bus drivers calling out, and that impacts routes as well. And so during my conversations with bus drivers, I think there's more we can do. When I mentioned there's some low-hanging fruit and some fruit on the ground from the standpoint of creating a culture there in our transportation department to ensure, again, that our bus drivers are valued. Our bus monitors are valued as well, I think is something that we will continue to work on. And then the more that the community can get the word out to recruit bus drivers, those that may have CDL license in the community, or those that may just have the time to give back and drive for our Durham Public Schools, we'll definitely welcome that as well.
You feel like our salary is competitive for bus drivers?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
No, not really. So might that be a big recruitment, area where of a focus?
Yeah, definitely. We're at about 1943, which is up. You know, we're right there close to Wake,
Right.
but we're not number 1. And so
Right.
that's, we definitely want to be number 1.
Right. And is it a full-time job? Like, I know they have a, period in the middle of the day where
Mm-hmm.
there's no driving happening, but seems like that would be attractive if it is indeed a full-time job, including benefits, et cetera. Is it? I couldn't remember.
They work
I
the
think
AM
maybe
and the
it's
PM,
changed
and
over-
pretty much they're guaranteed about 6 hours, depending on the driver, 6 to 8 hours, they are guaranteed.
And does that qualify for benefits?
The 6 hours? Yes.
They get benefits. Well, that's great. Yeah, anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, most definitely. We're competing with DoorDash, Amazon, and often I joke to bus drivers that, boxes don't talk back,
Right, right.
But there's a little bit more flexibility as it relates to definitely DoorDash and Amazon.
How
The
about
Go
city?
Triangle
Yeah.
routes
Triangle.
that I just pulled up, starting pay is $20.64 an hour. And then after a year 1, $22.68 is where folks jump up to. And by year 4, they're at $31.50. We cap out at 28? Something, I mean, after
Yeah.
30 years,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's,
so
it's
that's a
both
Thank
real
you.
starting,
gap.
yeah, sorry.
Thanks, everybody, for this robust conversation. I know there was a pre-K request. I would prefer that we have the MOA come before the board and sent to you all before we have a conversation about it at the joint meeting. And our staff was not prepared ahead of time for that. So we will add that back. And I know that the county commissioners are going to lose quorum momentarily. So I'd like us to acknowledge that there's no public comment, which was the next item on our agenda. And if everybody is okay, any questions the commissioners have, they can email over. And somebody from administration will respond. I'm sorry. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. Have a great day.